Hello, welcome to day 10, day 10 of 25 days, raising awareness of mental health. And today we're going to discuss depression. And what I'd sort of just introduce what I want to talk about. Particularly, I'm going to be using some of the NHS simple stuff to talk about what it is. Let's discuss some of the symptoms. Okay. And then we'll look at causes. And I'm going to sort of discuss what information is out there. And as part of this, the Facebook post, there's 4 links that I posted there. There's plenty more out there, but those were the first 4 main ones that I could find that were relevant for the UK. Mostly for NHS, which is great. Okay. And then I want to sort of introduce some other stuff that, from my experience, personal experience, and also I want to put some thoughts out there about depression in the modern age, and then particularly, not necessarily around the coronavirus situation, but the situation around society in general as we are now. Okay, so what is depression then? So to sort of paraphrase the NHS, it's more than just feeling unhappy for a few days. It's a continuous period of feeling particularly hopeless, helpless, and unable to enjoy those things that you have done in the past. And I'm going to sort of read some of the information because if you haven't read the stuff from the NHS, it is actually quite good as a basic there. And then when you get onto the main NHS website, there's lots of other information around other links. So, you know, for argument's sake, if you're worried that you might be concerned with anxiety as well as depression, there's a link there for anxiety and depression together, and so forth and so forth. So the NHS link is a fantastic resource to start from. Okay, so let's talk about symptoms then. So the things that we can normally feel. Yeah, okay, so some of the psychological symptoms: continuous low mood or sadness, feeling hopeless and helpless, having low self-esteem, feeling tearful, feeling guilt-ridden, okay, whatever reason, feeling irritable and intolerant of others. Well, I'm fairly intolerant of others sometimes, so irritable. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's something that, you know, you can have. Finding it difficult to make decisions. Now that is a classic for some people. They spend more time worrying about what decision they're going to make rather than making the decision, and then if they make a wrong one, clearing the mess up, etc. Not getting any enjoyment out of life. So nothing that you do and you enjoy is no enjoyment whatsoever. Okay, so feeling anxious and worried, suicidal thoughts. So depression can lead to suicidal thoughts along with other conditions. Okay, physical symptoms then. Moving or speaking more slowly than usual, so taking time to move around, changes in appetite or weight. Constipation, unexplained aches and pains, lack of energy, low sex drive, loss of libido, changes to menstrual cycle for females, disturbed sleep, difficult to fall asleep, or waking up early in the morning. Now, some of those signs and symptoms, yeah, you probably recognise some of those from the situation that we're in with the lockdown. I mean, some people have said that, you know, they're suffering strange sleep patterns, irritability, obviously, because, you know, you're being restricted. Putting on weight, well, you know, we're sort of not as active or moving around. People aren't working as much, etc. So there's a possibility that could all be part and parcel of the lockdown fallout, etc. So the signs and symptoms of depression, okay, can, you know, crop up in a short-term period quite easily. Okay, and let's look at some of the causes, what the cause is here, what they've said. Now, this is the NHS website, and then I want to discuss, and if possible, you can put your feelings, messages, etc. down here about what you think about depression yourself, or your opinion of what I'm saying, etc. So, causes. The NHS is very clear that they're saying there's no single cause of depression. It can occur for a variety of reasons and has many different triggers. So, stressful events. Yeah, people have stressful events in their lives, and again, I'll speak from some experience in the past about me, what I've gone through. Okay, personality. So, certain personality types are allegedly more prone to becoming depressed. So, if you are sort of got certain personalities, right, so overly self-critical, maybe so introverted, etc., you're more likely to, take things personally and start sort of get run down, etc. Family history. So if there's a family member that's had depression in the past, you're more likely to suffer from depression. Birth. So women, have given birth, etc. So there is a whole lot of depression around hormonal changes, physical changes, etc. in the body. Loneliness, right? Okay, now, and I want to come back to loneliness as a subject when I discuss my opinion. Okay, alcohol and drugs, and I think particularly with mental health issues, most mental health issues that we have will be made worse by the use of alcohol and misuse of drugs. That's a fairly good given, isn't it? But also, lots of people use alcohol and drugs as part of an escape, around depression, and maybe to manage their moods. However, alcohol is a depressant. It does drag our mood down. So, some people think that drinking alcohol gives them a boost. Makes them more confident, etc. But then we have that sort of double whammy. Okay. Illnesses, particularly you have some sort of life-threatening illness, and I know there's a few people listening in today, and I'm party, with somebody very close to me that was part of a situation where they had a life-threatening illness, and it has a long-term effect over you. So that is another one of those things. So, some ideas there of things that, there's lots more. There's lots more of causes, reasons why, etc. Okay. Now, depression. So the treatment of depression at the moment is sort of there's sort of different tiers of depression. So there's mild depression, where people say, okay, well, normally you'll go to the doctor, or if you go there, and they'll say, okay, well, we're going to wait a little while, maybe a couple of weeks, just to see whether things straighten themselves out. And sometimes they do, because, you're going there with a feeling that you might have depression, but actually it might just be that you're down. It's not actually full-blown depression yet, or it might be a mild depression that is part and parcel of recovering from a situation. And very rightly, you start to feel better after a couple of weeks because the situation has resolved itself, or you've taken some action, etc., that does start to resolve it. Okay, where that depression isn't getting better, or is getting worse, or you go back to the doctors after a few weeks and say, look, this isn't working for me, etc. Then there's lots of courses of action that they can do, and it used to be that medication was the main thing that they would do, probably the only thing. Or the main thing that they would do for depression, feeding depression. So we had almost an epidemic of pills, people just taking pills and managing the depression. And I've done a lot of reading in the past, and very kindly, one of the books that was sent over to me by Ash from Goldstone Books reinforced some of the reading that I've done about medical intervention. Okay, and this is to say, I am not a doctor at all. I have no medical knowledge whatsoever. I just follow the research. I just follow the books. I just follow the stuff that I read and the sorts I understand. And having not been under medication for depression, I can't answer whether that's right or wrong. All I'm going to do is make a few sort of observations around depression and the use of medications and other treatments. So sometimes the other treatments are counselling, where you enter a sort of a phase of discussing the situations that's around your life and whether you can start to make some changes, etc., whether that would make a change to your feelings. It may or may not be in partnership with some medication as well as some other treatments. None of these treatments are standalone as such. It might be CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. And as an aside, I've been studying sort of an online course over a while now. I've still got a long way to go to be a CBT practitioner. So it's something that I've delved into, and I sort of gel with it, and it feels quite right to be sort of doing that sort of stuff. CBT is, based around looking at your feelings and where those feelings come from, your learnings, actions, etc. And some of the stuff that we discussed earlier on in this sort of 10 days, maybe looking at, how we feel about certain stuff, the things that we say to each other and where that sort of stuff comes from, our story, etc. So all of that sort of stuff comes in. Okay. There might be all sorts of other treatments ranging up to, full-blown medication, clinical control, etc., for quite a period of time. Now, again, I'm going to make this caveat. I am not medically trained. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to disagree with medical stuff, etc. But there is a growing field of evidence that tablets, particularly antidepressants, do not work in the majority of cases. And what I mean by that is the evidence suggests that the testing that has been done in the past 30, 40 years ago about getting these antidepressants out onto the market and for people to have, maybe some of the testing and the procedures weren't as thorough as they should have been. However, in short-term cases, some of the antidepressants do work to make you feel better. But time and time again, the majority of cases where long-term use of these things, the benefits go away and the depressive feelings come back. And again, this is not me saying this is the clinical evidence that is out there. Okay, so you only have to just start Googling or reading books, etc., looking at the clinical surveys. Okay, and Freedom of Information Act means that the medical companies that have done all this research have to give all of the evidence, not just the ones that they want to submit for the medical stuff to be authorized. Okay, so there's sort of medication part there, but alongside other treatments, the use of tablets and things like that, antidepressants, is, a medical intervention. And, in some cases, it makes a lot of sense for people to have that sort of stuff to help them through, particularly where, they've had a life-changing event, etc. And that sort of stuff helps. Okay. But it doesn't normally help on its own, just taking pills, because, again, the body will get used to it. The body's systems start to override whatever the chemicals are, and then you end up on higher doses, etc. And eventually, in the majority of cases, the depression does come back, even though you're taking the pills. So that's a sort of a weird situation. Again, it's not me saying that, it is me just researching the stuff and putting it out there. What does seem to work is the other therapies in relation to counselling and doing other stuff, as well as medication. Yeah, and I'm not discounting medication, but the medication is one part. And again, the clinical studies now coming through are starting to dispute whether that is even worthy in some of the times that it has been used. What the evidence is showing is that depression is not just, as it was before, a change in your brain chemistry, okay, and not just a change because of a situation that can then be sorted out with a few pills, or even with counselling or CBT or anything else. Now, I'm going to switch into my opinions and my sort of, should we say, my experiences. So I've been depressed. I've suffered from depression, but not to the extent of where I've gone for medical intervention. What I have done is I've gone to see counsellors, and at times I've gone to speak to people that I know and personal friends, etc., to discuss situations over a period of time, and it's been really very useful, okay, to discuss how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling what it is, going through the situations that have happened to me. And again, you know, from my perspective, that has been really useful for me, okay? What I've noticed, and particularly in the larger world going on, and this is not just sort of, this has been happening, what, last 20, 25, 30 years, is some of the things that is now recognised as the causes of depression, such as loneliness, is actually being perpetrated by the things that we think probably help us. So the internet, okay? I mean, my personal experience is that with things like social media, it's not very sociable. Social media, for me, is a useful tool to keep in touch with people and sort of messy stuff, but actually it's not connecting people as such, it's disconnecting. Because if you think back to where we've come from as a human race, yeah, we lived in small groups, you know, maybe 50, 100, 200 people at the most in little sort of villages. And that little village, that little group of people relied on each other. We all relied on each other as part and parcel of that, live our lives, okay? So you were never lonely because you were always part of this group, okay? But if you got cut off from your group, and then this is, and you know, coming from one of the books that I've recently read, and it's a great analogy. You get cut off from your group, suddenly you're not feeling very well because you now haven't got the group to protect you. You haven't got the group to look after you. You haven't got the group to feed you, or you feed them, or you've got that connection with people. So you start to go through these strange feelings of being separated. Hypervigilant, not being able to sleep, because obviously normally you would sleep with the group and the group would then protect you. And obviously if you're not on with the group, you're not feeling protected. So some of the feelings that we have around simply being lonely, okay, away from other people, is part and parcel of our complex, our sort of process of going through that separation. Something else, you know, a trauma, loss of a loved one, that, again, is a traumatic event. You're going to feel upset. You're going to feel depressed for probably quite a long time. And, you know, if you're married to a person for a very long time and suddenly they're not there, that's going to make you feel quite upset for a long time. That's perfectly natural. Okay, it's part and parcel of that process of grieving. Okay, but what's happening is we're not able then to be supported through that because of our separation. Okay, so these things start to link, and actually the social media part is not something that you would discuss maybe these things, because that's what we don't do. We don't discuss our feelings in public. We don't discuss how losing a loved one has made us feel, because that makes other people feel uncomfortable. And this is why our mental health situation at the moment is perpetuating. We're not strong enough and able enough yet to feel that we can discuss our feelings of guilt, our upset, our base feelings of feeling separated and upset. Okay. And particularly, I suppose, the situation with the lockdown at the moment, where we are feeling separated at times. And I see quite a lot on the internet, you know, Facebook dipping into there, people getting angry about certain things, and you know, that's their opinion. Okay. We again, I suppose, one of the things they're talking about, feeling inadequate or feeling guilty, etc. Those sorts of feelings. Our lifestyles have changed to such an extent that we have a lot of leisure time now. At times where people were very sort of physical. Yeah, they had physical lifestyles. They work 6, maybe 7 days a week, 8, 10, 12, sometimes 15 hours a day, working in factories, etc. Now we've got a lot of leisure time. A lot of our sort of work, I mean, this is just me putting it out there. Sometimes our work feels quite mundane. We don't feel satisfied. We don't feel we're achieving very much. There doesn't seem to be the satisfaction that people have. So they start to indulge themselves and buy stuff to make themselves feel better. A bit of retail therapy. They start to dip into the internet and buy this and buy that, and all this stuff comes through. And again, clinical studies have shown that the people that are more materialistic, more focused on buying stuff so that they can make themselves feel better, they don't feel happy. They don't feel better. Okay, so I think the sort of the complicated situation with depression is the fact that we are going through a time where we are feeling disconnected as a people, as a human race. We are feeling that there is an expectation. Yeah, so we look on the internet and we see people with fast cars and big houses and lifestyles, etc. And that's, maybe we are feeling that we should be like that. Sometimes we're sort of so disconnected from people around us that we start to turn in to the internet. And there are people there that, have real issues and don't go out. So some of the things there about cutting yourself off, you start to move away from your friends and family. You start to cut yourself off. Okay? So the point being is that depression is not talked about enough in public. It is not discussed enough. It's almost like a dirty little secret. If we're depressed, people feel uncomfortable maybe around somebody with depression because they don't understand it. And some of the things that might be said to people with depression, oh, come on, snap out of it, you'll be fine. Come on, cheer up. Things could be better. There's always somebody worse than you, could be worse, that sort of stuff. Which, understandably, if people don't understand what depression is a normal reaction. We want to try and help, don't we? And I suppose my challenge and my sort of my thoughts about depression to you, people that are watching this, is accept that depression is part and parcel of life in society now. But it shouldn't be your whole life, okay? And particularly if you are going through a situation where, sadness is going to be there. Sadness is part and parcel of life. Sad things happen, and you are perfectly okay to be sad, perfectly okay to grieve, perfectly okay to feel that you don't want to snap out of it, be happy, look on the bright side, etc. That's perfectly natural. But sinking into the depression part is where it starts to take over your life and becomes part and parcel of who you are and what you do. Okay? So depression is a natural process of feeling sad around certain situations. Okay? But where we have to be sort of wary is where we don't then work through that depression. We sort of end up being a victim of the depression. It starts to overtake us. So I suppose what we need to think about is, what are some of the things that we can do if we know that we're likely to be depressed, there's going to be something there coming up? What are some of the things that we can do? Well, very simply, talk about depression. Find somebody that you are willing to talk to about it. Find somebody that is Maybe wanting to understand. If you don't understand about depression, maybe you've never met anybody with depression. Maybe you've not understood the process of depression. Go on the NHS website, look at all the links, look at all the stuff there, read the clinical depression causes, go through all of the events, go through the signs and symptoms. Maybe you'll recognize that maybe somewhere in your past you've had an episode of depression. And what would be interesting is if you do recognize you're either in depression or had an episode of depression, what was it that caused that depression? What was it that was the thing that brought you to that depression? And it won't be just one thing. It'll be a whole set of circumstances around that depression. Share depression. Share how you feel. And again, sometimes we feel, oh, well, I don't want to worry other people. Oh, I don't want to, make other people sad. I don't want to include other people in this sort of stuff. Well, we are a pack animal society. We're not individuals as such. We are individual. We're all unique, etc. But we're used to working in groups. Energy. We're energy beings. We're energy creatures. We're supposed to share our lives. Okay? And, again, think about some of the people in your life that maybe because of their situation, maybe because of their lifestyle, maybe because of some of the situations and things that have happened to them, are susceptible to poor mental health, are susceptible to becoming depressed, are susceptible to be having anxiety attacks or panic attacks and things like that. We will be discussing those later on. But depression it's almost bandied around nowadays, but people don't actually talk about it. We hear about people suffering from depression. We hear about stars, suffering from depression. We hear about people committing suicide, and again, I've used the word commit because I'm old school. So completing suicide is what we say, because commit used to be. It used to be a criminal act. Now it's not. It's decriminalised. Okay, but we know some of the people there that showed no signs of depression. They again, people are very good at hiding depression. It's a personal thing. Okay, but what we need to do is trying to open it up in society so that if somebody is suffering from depression, if somebody is going through a depressive state, if somebody is showing those signs, we feel confident enough to go and say, are you okay? I've noticed that, things have not been well for you and you look quite down. Is there anything I can do? I don't want to say, put words in your mouth, but you might think that you might have a bit of depression there. Is there anything that we can do together? Is there anything I can help you with? Again, we're not there yet. We wouldn't feel confident about doing that. But if you saw somebody at work that was looking really pale, oh, are you okay? Are you sick? Is that, do you need to go home? Is there something you've eaten? Do you want me to get you? You'd intervene then. So those sort of situations, okay, where people should feel confident about talking about depression and bringing it out. There's some people posting some things up now, and please feel free to put your feelings up about this, etc., and how you feel about the depression and where that came from. Again, the more we can bring depression out as a subject of discussion, again, it's one of those meaty things. Again, with depression, suicide, we don't talk enough about it. Therefore, when it happens, everybody's indignant and everybody jumps up and down about it, but they don't actually do anything with it. Okay, so all I want to do is keep talking about it, keep talking about depression. So, like I said, depression is just one of those things that we suffer from. People suffer from depression because of the things that happen to them. Okay, but we shouldn't suffer alone. We shouldn't suffer to the point where we do feel that there are no alternatives, and we shouldn't then feel that we can't get help or people to sort of match that process. Again, it's a more complicated subject rather than somebody just feeling upset for a long period of time. So what I want people to do is to go out there Okay, after this, yeah, if you've not suffered from depression, you've got no idea what depression is, or you've got a vague idea of what depression is, go and educate yourself. Go on the NHS website, go and read some books if you want to read books, go and sort of do some research yourself and look at what depression is, look at the clinical interventions, look at the medications, look at the therapies that are available, look at all the other stuff there that is available to you. And what I would suggest is that if you are committed to making yourself feel better, but also maybe helping others, find a way to reach out, find a way to getting the word of depression or mental health issues out there. Let's generalize it. Let's normalize it. Let's make it everyday language rather than an embarrassment, rather than being something that is sort of whispered about in the corners. We don't have to shout about it and ram it down people's throats, but we do need to normalize it. We do need to make it part and parcel of everyday language so that people feel comfortable about discussing this stuff. I'm going to stop there. Okay. So we've got a second event tonight at 8 o'clock. So I've created a Zoom classroom, my first ever. So if you're going to turn up for that, be gentle. I'll probably be a bit glitchy. I'll be working my way through that. So we're going to go through, going to start doing a goal setting workshop, and we're going to see how that works. It'll be about 30 minutes because there's a limit on the amount of time that you can have a big group on there unless you go and buy a big membership, and I'm not going to do that yet. But Zoom hosts that. You can come and join that in there, and yeah, come and go through the steps. Now, if we don't cover all the steps in the first one, then I'll just put another one in for tomorrow night or later in the week, whatever, so we can go through that. There'll be some homework for you to do, things for you to do. So it's not just turn up and sit there and not do anything, but you've got to then take some action. Okay, and some steps to move forward with the goal setting. If that's something you're interested in, so check out the Facebook post about the Zoom thing, and I'll see you at 8 o'clock. If not, I'll see you tomorrow.